What's up, guys? Happy Vlogmas Day 20? Yeah. So, as you guys know, I took a deload week this week, and I thought I should do a little video just kind of explaining what a deload week is and how you know you need to take one. So, let's get started. Little notes here so I don't ramble. Okay, so first of all, a deload week. Well, what is that? A deload week is a planned reduction in volume or intensity, and it lasts usually for a week or a cycle of your lifting schedule. So what weight training does when you lift heavy, it taxes your muscles and it puts a lot of stress on your joints and your ligaments and also your central nervous system. So what deloading does is it allows your body to repair itself further from what it may have only been able to do while you were lifting heavy. It also gives you a mental break from the mental fatigue aspect of a heavy training schedule. A lot of people on Instagram, sorry, Bravo's playing with a bone. Can you get it, bud? No? Okay, I'll be right back. Okay. Where was I? Okay, so a lot of times on social media, you'll see people saying, you know, give 100% of the time, or 110%, 100% of the time, and you'll get the results you want. Well, that's really not the case. If you're an experienced lifter, you know that you can't go 100% of the time in the gym. Your body just can't do it. It gets tired, you'll lose motivation. It's just not possible. So that is why you take a deload week. Now, if you're not an experienced lifter, if you've only been lifting for, say, a year, you won't need to deload probably yet. Or if you are lifting heavy and you've only been lifting for like a year or so, you probably won't need to deload as often as someone who's been lifting for, say, 3 to 5 years. That's because you haven't necessarily overtaxed your muscles yet. You haven't overtaxed your joints, your ligaments. You haven't put them under that much stress. It hasn't been that long. So you won't need to deload as often as someone who's been lifting for a long time. So then the next question would be, how often should I deload? And that generally depends on how hard you're training and if you're training on a regular basis, and also how quickly your body recovers. Now, for me personally, I deload maybe every 2 months. My body does not recover that quickly. I tend to be sore still 2 days after a workout, if that workout makes me sore. Being sore is not an indication of how hard you're working, but my body just doesn't recover very easily. I'm a short person, my ligaments, my joints, they're very small because I'm only 5'3" and I'm very tiny. So I deload about once every 2 months if I'm not on prep. So I was 2 months into my reverse diet. I deloaded this week, and then I have a little less than 2 months left of my reverse, so before I start prep in the new year, I will either deload again or I'll take a whole week off of lifting. I'm not quite sure yet, but like I said, it just depends on how often you train, how quickly you recover, and how heavy you are training. If you're someone who doesn't train very heavy and you prefer to lift, you know, lighter weight with more volume, so more sets, more reps, that's fine. You won't need to deload as often as someone who's lifting 80% of their max for every single lift every week. Then you're probably wondering, well, how do I know I need to take a deload week? Signs that you might need a deload are things like you're tired, your body feels fatigued all the time, maybe you're losing your desire to train, you're just not motivated, if your weight progression has stalled, so if you've been moving up in weight consistently each week and then suddenly you can't lift any heavier, that would be a sign that you need to deload. Also, if you're experiencing aches, pains, if you've strained a muscle, if your joints start to hurt, like you have signs of tendonitis, or in my case, I have a very light case of carpal tunnel from when I was a hairdresser. And last week on my arm day, when I was working arms, I could barely hold the weight in my hand because it hurt that bad. My whole arm was just like in pain. I was able to do, I think, 2 exercises for biceps and 2 exercises for triceps, and then I couldn't do any more. That's when I decided to take my deload week. So if you're experiencing any aches, pains, then yeah, it's probably not a bad idea to take a deload week, especially if you're training regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean, well, regularly is different for everyone, but generally if you're lifting 5 to 6 or 4 to 6 days every week, then you should probably take a deload week sometime in your lifting life. So that is the what, when, and why of deload week, and now we're going to move into the how. So how do I take a deload week? So what I like to do is stick to the same amount of sets. I'll drop the weight that I use about 50%. So for example, I can curl 35-pound dumbbells for 6 reps. So today, instead of curling 35 pounds for 6 reps, I curled 15 pounds for 15 reps. So I decreased my weight just a little, under 50% or about 50%, and then I did more reps. Because my rep range is usually somewhere in the 8 to 10 or 6 to 8 range, depending on what part of my body I'm working. So I increased my reps by about 5, I don't know. I like to go between 12 and 15 when I deload because 8 to 12 is hypertrophy. That's a hypertrophy range, so a growing your muscle, building muscle range, and 12 to 15 or 15 to 20, that's more of an endurance range. So I'm not trying to grow my muscle, I'm trying to give it a break. So I increase the reps and I just focus on the movement itself, making sure my form is correct, and really just giving my body the break that it needs. There are different ways you can go about a deload week. You could decrease your weight by 50% and keep your volume and your reps the same. So if, we'll use that example again. If you're curling 35-pound dumbbells for 6 to 8 reps and you want to take a deload week, so you'll lift 15-pound dumbbells for 6 to 8 reps. As long as you're giving your body that rest that it needs and you're decreasing that weight, you're still giving yourself a good deload week, a good week to recover. I haven't been sore at all this week. I usually get sore from every workout I do. That's just my body. Everyone's different. My body gets sore from almost every workout. Some people don't. It's not an indicator of how hard you're working. It's just an indicator of how your body reacts to that stress that you're placing on it. I know some people say, instead of a deload week, take a week off. I personally have never taken a week off. I do think it's a good thing. The gym is just my stress reliever, though. So if I don't go to the gym, then I tend to be a very anxious and stress-ridden person. So I tend to prefer the deload week to the week off. That's just my personal preference. But I will probably take a week off before I start prep again, just because I think it would be good for my body. I haven't taken a week off ever. I've been lifting for like 4 years now, 4 or 5 years, since I got out of high school. So yeah, for like 5 years, 3 of those being heavier, like the last 3 years when I started lifting heavier. So there you go, buddy. He's such a baby. He would have just cried if I let his bones stay on the floor. Okay, So just to recap quickly, a deload week is a planned reduction in your volume or intensity in your training that lasts either a week or for a cycle in your training schedule. It allows your muscles to repair while also giving you a mental break from the stress that lifting impends on your body. When you should take one and if you should take one generally depends on how hard you train and if you train regularly, and also how quickly you recover. And signs that you might need a deload week are if you're feeling tired, generally fatigued all the time, your weight progression is stalling, you have lost your desire to train, or you're experiencing any pains, aches, just symptoms of muscle overuse basically. And how to take a deload week: you should generally reduce the weight you use by about 50%, and how you plan everything else is up to you. So your volume, your sets, that's completely up to your preference. So I hope this video helps some of you out if you had any questions or didn't know what a deload week is. And if there's a question that you have that I didn't answer, leave it in the comments below and I will do my best to get back to you, because everyone deserves an answer, right? Yeah, okay. So that's it, and I will see you guys tomorrow.